The history of Otyrar consists of periods of flourishing and well-being, dramatic fall and complete oblivion of this ancient city. It is a chronicle of a destiny of nomads. Otyrar was one of the wealthiest and advanced medieval centers on Central Asian section of the Great Silk Road. One of the most outstanding and well-known philosophers of the East, Abu Nasr al-Farabi, was born and grew up here. The settlement, situated in the southern part of Kazakhstan, was known as Starband. It was denoted as such in ruins dedicated to Kultagin and Bulke Kagan. In ancient written documents, Otyrar is also referred to as Starband, Turarband, Farab. In Turkic, the word Otyrar, Turar, means stand. According to some legends about the origins of the city, its name came from the oghuz musical instrument. There are many legends circulating within people about the story of this ancient city. For instance, according to folklore stories, Arslan Bab, who was a mentor for Hoja Ahmed Yesavi, passed away and was buried in vicinities of Otyrar in 12th century. Here, in Otyrar, Tamerlan, fearless ruler of medieval times, ordered to restore the mausoleum of Arslan Bab, and here as well, during his last campaign, he passed away himself. These legends are another evidence that Otyrar was an important administrative, trade, scientific and cultural center. According to scientific researchers, the flourishing of Otyrar oasis was peaking during 1st to 13th centuries AD. Excavations of 7th, 8th century city layers prove that by that time it was a developed city. It became a capital in the 11th century, and during the 14th, 15th centuries it gained the status of a political center. As of today, the mausoleum of the medieval mystic Arslan Bab is a sacred place for Muslims in Central Asia and a destination point for hundreds of pilgrims from around the world. Saint Arslan Bab was a legendary person. Stories tell that he was an associate of Prophet Muhammad, who handed a winter plum over to a soon-to-become a proponent of Islam, Hoja Ahmed Yesavi. There were also talks of Arslan Bab being a batur, a gardener and a clairvoyant. Situated on the junction of Aris and Sirdarya rivers, the city was exceptionally attractive for outsiders. History recognizes names of numerous warlords who attempted to conquer Otyrar. One of them was Alexander the Great, who walked a long way to fulfill his grandiose plans. However, 28-year-old commander couldn't even imagine the struggles he was going to go through. According to historians that were accompanying Alexander, Saka troops were appearing abruptly, striking shattering attacks and disappearing in the same rapid manner. Historians think that there were no special trophies for Alexander in the Great Steppe. No suitable food, no fruits, no slaves. In general, complete absence of those attributes of luxury he got used to during his conquest of Asia Minor. However, there were thousands of furious equestrian warriors. Another complication was that his troops had to move through austere steppe and sultry sand. As a result, the advance of an Alexander's army was not just stopped, but reversed. This is most likely the only case in history when great Macedonian ruler practically was defeated, since he wasn't able to achieve his goal. One of the few rulers who succeeded in conquering Otyrar was Genghis Khan. After defeating Chinese states, he turned his view upon Central Asia. The antecedent of his invasion was so-called Otyrar catastrophe. In summer 1218, Genghis Khan sends a caravan for concealed military intelligence. The ruler of Otyrar, Kayhan Inilchik, suspected merchants with espionage and gave out an order to kill them and plunder the caravan. This was a ground for Genghis Khan invasion into Khwarezm. But the real reason was, of course, the annexionist Mongol policy. Prior to approaching Otyrar, Mongolian ruler divided his forces. He has left several Tumens. Tumen is a Mongolian army unit of 10,000 soldiers, headed by Chagatai and Ugedei, to lay siege to Otyrar. Sent another part led by Joly down the Sirdarya river. Third detachment was meant to conquer cities up the Sirdarya stream. Genghis Khan himself with his younger son Tului and main body of his army headed to Bukhara. The siege of Otyrar resulted in greatest losses for Genghis Khan's army during his Central Asian campaign. Looking back at the historical past of Otyrar, we see that this city was turning into ashes and yet still reviving several times. Otyrar survived major destructions caused by Karahanid dynasty, Khwarezm state, Genghis Khan, long-standing Kazakh-Uzbek conflicts. In September 1219, Genghis Khan approached Otyrar with his army of 200,000 warriors. The ruler of Otyrar, Kayhan, defended fiercely, taking every chance. Genghis Khan's sons were not expecting such resistance and, in anger, commanded to level the city to the ground. A reserve gates to the city were discovered during the archaeological excavations of 2013-2014 on the southern part of the city. In the course of research, scientists found that the city had massive fortification constructions that were able to withstand a lasting siege of any enemy. The siege of Otyrar lasted almost 5 months. There were just 20,000 warriors under Kayhan command, and 10,000 more were provided by Khwarezm Shah Muhammad under the leadership of Karaja Hajiv. By the time the provision reserves were ending, Karaja Hajiv's spirit broke and he committed betrayal by opening the gates for Mongol troops. Nevertheless, Otyrar continued resistance. Kayhan and his warriors, like lions, fortified themselves in the citadel, and it took Mongols another month to break into. In February 1220, all defendants fell and Kayhan was tackled to be cruelly executed later. Following Genghis Khan's command, Mongols razed the city to the ground. During the 15th century, Otyrar was built anew and became one of the administrative centers of Kazakh Khanate. In the course of late medieval lay excavations of Otyrar, golden coins were found, dated 12th-13th centuries. 14th century copper stamp represented coins from Turkestan, Tashkent, Bukhara and Samarkand. However, finding the treasure together with intermediate templates allows an assumption about Otyrar having its own mint. On top of that, ceramic, metal, stone and chinaware items were found. During the 14th century, madrasa, tekke, mosques and other public buildings were erected by the order of Akorda Khans. In 14th century, Otyrar became a part of Timur's empire. Next step in the history of the city reflects the battle over the right of possession of Otyrar, which had a strategical significance between Kazakh Khanate and descendants of Timur and Muhammad Shaybani. There is another story of Tamerlan in connection with Otyrar. In the end of the 14th century, famous commander was getting ready for his last campaign to China. However, he was never able to fulfill this plan. In February 1405, Timur got a cold and passed away in one of the palaces of Otyrar. Otyrar was mentioned in travel notes of almost every Arabic and Persian authors who ever visited these territories. According to those notes, Otyrar was a big city situated in the intersection of caravan roads with giant palaces, mosques and caravanserai. Historical data suggests that there were settlements 2,500 years ago. Otyrar became an important center for science, culture, trade, thanks to its convenient location on the Great Silk Road. Different cultures of Eurasia were bordering here. For merchants making their way from Europe to Far East, India and China, Otyrar was a cultural mecca of new ideas and innovations. That is why the city got its developed infrastructure: madrasa, trade workshops, shopping centers, baths, hotels and bazaars. While talking about Otyrar, you cannot but mention that famous library that was considered to be the second biggest after Great Library of Alexandria. Unfortunately, there are no specific data as to what exactly happened to the library. Archaeological excavations don't give out much as well. Nevertheless, Yesovi in his famous treatise Diwan-i-Hikmet describes Otyrar as center of scientific thought. As you might know, it was a home for distinguished minds of those times. In the end of 13th century, a madrasa that existed up until the Mongolian invasion was built in Otyrar. Students of religious school were taught on three main languages of the time: Turkic Kipchak, Farsi and Arabic. Along with theological disciplines, tutors taught such subjects as astronomy, geometry, music and mathematics. Prominent scientist Abu Nasr al-Farabi attained his first knowledge within those walls. One of the brightest representatives of Eastern philosophy, second to Aristotle, Abu Nasr al-Farabi was an inquisitive, hard-working child with exceptional abilities. Encyclopedist and author of more than 200 treatises on philosophy, ethics, logics, music, mathematics, physics and astronomy, was the first one to translate works of Aristotle into Arabic. Like many other medieval cities, Otyrar consisted of citadel and Shahristan. They were built as of 18-meter-high pentagonal mounds. In general, Otyrar occupied a territory of 200 hectares. Collections of various glass items were found in the course of excavations. Fragments of decanters, bowls, goblets and sand bottles. Many jewelry items as well as garnet, carnelian, glass bead pendants, rings, bronze bracelets. Another treasure was found in 1974, containing jewelry, bracelets, rings and coins. Production of glass using advanced technologies was developed in 10th, 11th centuries in Otyrar. The golden times of urban culture happened during the Karahanid rule. The city had functioning sewage system, sanitary nodes. At present times, right where this glorious city used to stand, remains of a mosque built by Berdebek Khan in 14th-15th centuries were found. It is the first time when such a massive architectural ensemble, this mosque complex of Otyrar, is being unsealed in medieval city of Kazakhstan. The remains of ruler's palace, with 1 meter thick burnt brick walls, was also found here. The mosque was located in western part of a cubical palace. There was a well in a courtyard. According to certain sources, Tamerlan passed away in one of the palaces of the city. There was a bath in southern part of Shahristan consisting of 10 rooms, massage room in the center, and washing and relaxation rooms around it. The heat came from heating channel laid under the floor. Another novelty of 12th century was the appearance of tashpao, sanitary units of a medieval house. The principle of construction was the following. They dug out a 2-3 meter deep hole in front of a hearth, placing a ceramic pot with broken bottom on the edge of it and covered it with burnt bricks on top. In some large cities, the lower part of tashpao was equipped with ceramic pipes that let dirty water out. These days, exhibits that are stored at National Archaeological Museum of Otyrar narrate the ancient history of this wonderful city. The main function of museum is to preserve valuable exhibits that are used for scientific research. There are more than 22,000 items stored at the museum. More than 180 cultural and historical heritage monuments are located on 11,000 hectares territory of museum complex. The history of Otyrar is not fully studied yet. One of the most frequent questions is, when did this city's story end? I assume that might have happened in 1749-1750. Local communities moved to cities nearby, such as Yeskishilik, Turkestan and Kental. We told you about the history of just one city, shedding light on glorious exploits of our ancestors. How many more undiscovered mysteries, unwritten legends are there in Memories of the Nation?